Upon noticing the golden plate on the man's waist, the boy realizes they are snake catchers from the infamous snake-catching sect, here to capture the old black snake. The man, his eyes cold and calculating, asks the boy again about the snake, but the boy remains silent, feigning ignorance. This leads the man to suspect that the boy might be mute. After a tense pause, the boy finally replies, stating he has never encountered the old black snake. At this point, the man's companion, also clad in black, addresses him as Senior Brother Ding, and informs him that the boy knows nothing and is of no use. Suddenly, a commotion erupts from the top of a nearby hill. Several crows take flight, their cries piercing the air, drawing the attention of the two men and the boy. Puzzled by the disturbance, the snake catchers decide to investigate. One of them speculates that the commotion could be the old black snake, prompting the boy to inwardly wish for the snake to escape their clutches. However, before they can ascend the hill, they freeze at the sound of a voice echoing through the valley, claiming that the old black snake had consumed someone in the river. The two men, interpreting this as a sign of the snake's presence in the water, dash towards the river, determined not to let it slip away. The boy chuckles softly, confident that the old black snake is still feasting on the fish he provided earlier. There's no way it could be in the river, he thinks. Meanwhile, at the summit of the hill, where the crows had been cawing, several broken eggs lay scattered across the ground. Suhei had made his narrow escape, cursing the foolish birds that caused the chaos, even pecking him on the head in their frenzy. He shook his head, irritated but focused on his survival. He pondered how he had once again narrowly evaded capture by the snake-catching sect, who were now falsely accusing him of consuming people in the river. Suhei mused on the strange behavior of the boy, wondering why the boy had claimed never to have seen him before. But after a moment's thought, he dismissed it. Human behavior was too bizarre and unpredictable for him to bother understanding. He had bigger concerns now. The snake catchers were hunting him, and they were relentless. He resolved that he could no longer linger in the area and would have to avoid this region entirely if he wanted to ensure his survival. Near the riverbank, Suhei decided that his best course of action was to escape to the mountains on the opposite side. He believed the mountains would provide a safe haven for at least a few months, a place where he could focus on his cultivation away from human interference. As he slipped into the river and began swimming across, his mind wandered. He noted with some dread that winter was approaching in 3 months. Without a reliable source of food, his cultivation progress would be severely hindered during the cold season. Suddenly, a large figure emerged in the water ahead of him, sending ripples through the river. Suhei's eyes widened, and before he could fully process the sight, a massive fish lunged at him, its mouth wide open, attempting to swallow him whole. Not again! Suhei cursed his misfortune as the monstrous fish loomed closer, its dark silhouette growing larger by the second. Suhei quickly leaped aside, wondering why such fearsome creatures inhabited this river. Submerging his head underwater to get a better look, he realized the beast pursuing him was a giant eel. Its serpentine form explained why it had been mistaken for him, the old black snake, in the first place, and why it was blamed for the disappearances in the river. However, something caught his attention. The eel was severely injured, likely from a fierce confrontation with the snake catchers. Suhei pondered why the eel had attacked him without provocation while he was merely passing through. It wasn't until their eyes met that he understood. The eel was not fleeing. It was trying to regain its strength by devouring him. With a grin, Suhei considered confronting the beast, seeing it as a potential source of sustenance for the cold months ahead. However, caution soon tempered his eagerness. This creature had evaded the snake catchers, a sign of its formidable strength. The risk was too great, and Suhei quickly prioritized his own survival. Just as he made his decision to escape, the eel lunged at him from behind, intent on swallowing him whole. Suhei noted the creature's relentless determination, but with a swift maneuver, he dodged the attack, swimming to the side just as the eel crashed headfirst into the riverbank. As Suhei attempted to flee again, he couldn't help but admire the eel's tenacity, though his own exhaustion was creeping in. Determined to end this struggle, Suhei summoned all his strength and decided to target the eel's vulnerable, wounded abdomen, hoping to find a way out. Shifting into his battle form, Suhei's body swelled, growing larger than usual. With a powerful strike, he slammed his tail into the eel's weakened abdomen, eliciting a painful shriek from the creature. Biting into its flesh, he recoiled at its slimy texture and peculiar odor. But then, something unexpected happened. His mouth filled with heat. "Ha!" Su-hei exclaimed, bewildered. How could there be fire at the river's bottom? As he looked around, he noticed the water itself seemed to ignite, though they were submerged. Confusion filled him. How could this be happening underwater? The eel, undeterred, prepared for another charge, its maw wide open, poised to devour him. Su-hei, sensing something strange, questioned if he was seeing an illusion. Recalling Chun Fan's teachings on illusions, Su-hei knew he had to remain calm. He speculated that the eel's mucus might be causing these hallucinations, further clouding his judgment. As the eel drew ever closer, Su-hei resolved to follow the advice of Chun Fan. Control the mind, shatter the illusion. Curling his body tightly, Su-hei began to concentrate all his spiritual energy into a single point, his thoughts focused solely on survival. He recited the incantation of the demon god cauldron, envisioning heaven and earth as the chessboard, with all living beings as mere pieces. With a roar that echoed even underwater, Su-hei commanded the illusion to shatter. The energy surged from his core, and the demon god cauldron within him manifested into the form of a magnificent dragon, tearing through the false reality. Su-hei was filled with awe, having successfully shattered the illusion, but his triumph was short-lived. Mere inches away from him, the massive eel was still lunging to devour him. In a moment of desperation, Su-hei closed his eyes, knowing escape was impossible. Instinctively, he lashed out with his tail, bracing for the worst. To his astonishment, his tail, reinforced by golden scales tougher than iron, sliced the eel clean in half. Opening his eyes, Su-hei was taken aback by the sight of the eel's body, now severed by his own strike. He stood in disbelief, contemplating the sheer strength his tail had gained. His thoughts drifted to the potential of his golden scales. If further refined, they could render him invincible. But he quickly dismissed such prideful thinking, attributing his victory to luck. The eel had already been gravely injured when it collided with the scales. Caution, he reminded himself, was still essential. Determined to avoid unnecessary risk, Su-hei decided it was best to retreat. He needed to hide in the mountains, where he could recover and plan his next moves. The scene shifted to a quiet spot on the opposite side of the mountain, where Su-hei had already processed and packaged the eel's meat. He estimated this supply would sustain him for several months of cultivation. Holding the demon core of the eel in his hands, he felt confident that with this, he could push himself to the third spiritual stage. While preparing to consume the demon core, Su-hei discovered something else, a golden plate embedded within the eel's body. He paused, speculating that the eel's last meal must have been one of the snake catchers. Bowing his head slightly, Su-hei paid his respects to the eel. In its own way, the eel had helped him overcome not only the beast, but his human foes as well. It was, after all, the natural order of life. I will not let your sacrifice go to waste, Su-hei murmured to the eel. Every part of you will be used. He reassured the fallen creature that even its demon core would serve a purpose. However, as he attempted to swallow the core, he realized it was far too large for him to consume in one go. At that moment, Su-hei became acutely aware of the approaching danger. The snake catchers would soon be upon him. Hastily, he secured the eel's meat to his tail and clenched the demon core between his teeth, deciding to refine it later when he reached a safer place in the mountains. Suddenly, the snake catchers arrived at the scene, their voices echoing through the trees. From their conversation, Su-hei realized they had pieced together the situation. Initially, they had been confused by how the old black snake had managed to escape so swiftly in the river. But now, it was clear. The water beast that had attacked someone in the river wasn't the old black snake. It had been the black snake that fought and defeated the water beast. One of the snake catchers suggested pursuing the old black snake further into the mountains, but another quickly countered. He explained that the territory ahead belonged to the Iron Bear, a formidable beast residing at the peak of the third spiritual stage. They couldn't afford to underestimate it. Moreover, the mountains were vast, and the forest thick, meaning their search for the old black snake could take months. Worse, they might cross paths with the bear instead. The second snake catcher then inquired if Senior Brother Ding had heard the rumors. The old black snake had recently consumed an alchemist and his human companion, both of whom had been cultivating for many years. This suggested that the medicinal properties of that human were still within the snake, offering a rare opportunity. If Senior Brother Ding could obtain the snake's remains, it might finally push him past the third chi refinement stage where he had long been stuck. Before the second could elaborate, Senior Brother Ding raised his hand in caution. It's too risky, he warned. Venturing into the mountains at this time, with only the two of them, would likely lead to heavy losses. They would bide their time and wait until winter set in fully. Once the mountains were blanketed in snow and the bears, snakes, and other beasts entered hibernation, they could make their move. Patience would bring them profit. Meanwhile, Suhei had discovered a cozy cave nestled deep within the mountains. He relished its warmth and comfort, noting how it provided the perfect refuge for him to hide and cultivate. At the cave's entrance, he hung the eel meat to dry, already imagining it sustaining him through the long winter months. He decided to focus on cultivation after taking some much-needed rest. And so, 2 months passed. Winter had fully arrived, and snow blanketed the forest in thick layers of white. Suhei was surprised by how much more challenging it was to advance from the second to the third level of spiritual cultivation compared to his initial breakthroughs. Observing his tail, he remarked on the progress he had made. Through refining the demonic core, blood, and meat he had acquired from the eel, he had strengthened himself, though he still hadn't broken through to the third level. Despite days of continued cultivation, the breakthrough remained elusive. Nonetheless, Suhei felt a sense of minor achievement. 3 additional pieces of golden scale had emerged on his tail, their luster gleaming even in the dim light of his cave. Utilizing his divine sensibility, he inspected the demon statue cauldron within him. It was brimming with spiritual energy, an indication that he had reached the peak of the second level of cultivation. Suhei believed that with the right opportunity, he would finally break through to the third level. The scene then shifts to the snowy forest, where he struggles to relocate with what remains of his dwindling eel meat supply. His body feels stiff from the cold, and he comments on how the harsh winter is sapping his strength. Realizing that he's running out of both time and food, Suhei reluctantly concludes that hibernation is his only option. He resolves to enter a deep sleep and wait until spring to venture out of the mountains in search of more sustenance for his cultivation. Meanwhile, the focus shifts to the snake catchers. They are now speaking with several villagers from a remote mountain settlement, offering golden coins to anyone who helps them locate the old black snake. One villager, eager to secure the reward, assures the snake catchers that their village, known as Snake Village, is renowned for its expertise in hunting and capturing serpents. To aid in their search, they have 2 dogs specially trained to detect the scent of snakes. The snake catchers, pressing for time, urge the villagers to act swiftly in tracking down the elusive old black snake. As the villagers prepare for the hunt, one of them mutters disdainfully about the arrogance of the snake catchers. Another villager defends them, pointing out that the snake catchers possess real skill and are simply doing their job. He adds that his son, Xiao Nui, has a passion for learning and treasures an old, discarded book like a rare gem. The payment from the snake catchers, he explains, could help him enroll his son in a prestigious sect, bringing him great joy and securing his son's future. Suddenly, the dogs begin barking excitedly, signaling that they've found something. One villager questions how the dogs could have located a snake pit so quickly, but nonetheless, they inform the snake catchers, suggesting that the hole might belong to the old black snake. The snake catchers move in to investigate. As the group approaches, the scene cuts back to Suhei, who is in a state of panic. Realizing that the snake catchers have returned with reinforcements and that the dog's keen sense of smell has led them directly to him, he feels the cold biting at his body, leaving him stiff and vulnerable. Escape seems impossible. His body, weighed down by the winter's chill, isn't fast or agile enough to flee. He knows that if he doesn't act soon, he will be captured. As the snake catchers survey the area, one villager eagerly proclaims that they will surely receive their reward for finding the old black snake. But just as their hopes rise, the snake catchers stop, puzzled. One of them steps forward and declares that the scent the dogs have been following doesn't belong to the old black snake. It belongs to the iron bear. The villagers are stunned. One insists that the dogs have never been wrong before, but the snake catchers dismiss their claims, questioning the villagers' supposed expertise. The villagers soon spotted a large hole resembling a cave, which the snake catchers immediately associated with the territory of the mountain iron bear. Without hesitation, they instructed the villagers to enter the cave in search of the old black snake. Meanwhile, Suhei, hidden away, breathed a sigh of relief, grateful for his careful preparation. He silently praised himself for not only blocking the entrance with stones, but also for covering it with branches and masking his scent with bear feces. In his mind, it was sheer luck that had kept him hidden thus far. As the villagers entered the cave, Suhei silently reassured himself. He had dug a 20-meter deep tunnel, believing that it would be nearly impossible for the snake catchers to detect his presence. Yet, he knew he couldn't afford to be complacent. Urging himself to stay focused, he began circulating his energy, desperately trying to regain his body heat as a precaution against the cold. Outside the cave, the snake catchers stood at the entrance, surveying the area with quiet satisfaction. One of them commented that despite the depth of the hole, it was unmistakably a snake pit, a clear indication that they were closing in on Suhei's location. Another catcher sneered, suggesting that since their goal had been achieved, the villagers, whom they disdainfully referred to as idiots, were no longer needed. He casually remarked that fewer survivors meant less money to distribute when the mission was complete. The scene shifted to the villagers, who stood uneasily at the cave's entrance, looking around warily. Unbeknownst to them, one of the snake catchers was devising a cruel plan. He intended to lure the demon bear out of hiding and use it to wipe out the villagers. Once the bear had served its purpose, they would deal with it, all while avoiding direct conflict themselves. Back in his hiding place, Suhei overheard the snake catcher's conversation and couldn't help but ponder why they would choose to eliminate their own companions instead of focusing on the bear. He found the ruthlessness of the human heart deeply unsettling, but quickly dismissed the thought. His more pressing concern was the fact that the snake catchers were aware of his general location, with one even standing ominously close by. The danger to his life was growing by the second. As he weighed his options, Suhei's thoughts turned to the demon bear. The catchers planned to confront it after disposing of the villagers. Perhaps, he thought, if he could find a way to consume the bear's essence, it would provide him with the opportunity he desperately needed to break through to the third level of spiritual cultivation. In one fell swoop, he might gain the strength necessary to face the snake catchers head-on. However, as usual, doubt crept into his mind. The risk was enormous. What kind of fool would challenge a demon bear, much less in the presence of snake catchers? Striking the ground with frustration, Suhei recalled that the snake catchers had mentioned teaming up to defeat the bear, which meant they weren't in a hurry to kill him yet. But the notion of trying to consume the bear in front of them was absurd. It would be nothing short of a death wish. Meanwhile, one of the snake catchers, Manhwa, was quietly scheming against his companions. He muttered to himself that the demon bear and the old black snake together would only be enough for one person to achieve a breakthrough, implying that he intended to eliminate his partner after they dealt with the demon bear. Hidden away, Suhei overheard this and began to wonder if there was a silver lining to the unfolding chaos. The internal conflict between the snake catchers might present him with an opportunity to turn the situation in his favor. He resolved to remain calm and observe, waiting for the perfect moment to act. Not long after, one of the other snake catchers returned, announcing that he had completed the preparations to lure out the demon bear. He confidently claimed that in less than 30 minutes, the beast would awaken. Almost immediately, a deafening roar echoed from deep within the cave, signaling the bear's awakening and its attack on the unsuspecting villagers. Panic ensued as the villagers scrambled, terrified and confused. They had been led to believe they were searching for a snake, not a bear. Desperate, they turned to the snake catchers for help. The snake catchers, however, stood on a high ledge, watching the chaos unfold with cold indifference. When the villagers pleaded for assistance, they responded with harsh glares, calling them useless and urging them to accept their fate. One catcher even sneered, telling them to simply perish. It dawned on the villagers then that they had been deliberately deceived, led into the bear's cave as part of a sinister plot to cut costs and eliminate them. One brave villager, enraged by the betrayal, drew his bow and fired an arrow at the snake catchers. The arrow struck one of their coin pouches, spilling gold coins and cultivation pills onto the ground. Suhei, nearby, caught the scent of the scattered pills, immediately recognizing them as golden pills. The rich, magical aroma filled his senses, and he couldn't resist. With a swift flick of his tail, he snatched one of the pills, drooling at the invigorating energy it radiated. Meanwhile, one of the snake catchers noticed his pouch had been torn open and asked his partner for help collecting the spilled contents. As the demon bear drew closer, the other catcher bent down to scoop up the scattered pills and coins, arrogantly claiming that anything he picked up now was rightfully his, due to his partner's negligence. All the while, the demon bear had finished off the remaining villagers, now holding the last one in its massive jaws. As the grim scene unfolded, Manhwa began chanting under his breath, a sinister gleam in his eye. He turned to his partner, and suggested that he too should join the fallen villagers. Without warning, Jean shoved his partner toward the advancing bear. The man stumbled forward, his eyes wide with shock as he landed dangerously close to the beast. The demon bear's eyes locked onto him, its fury apparent. In disbelief, the fallen snake catcher confronted Jean Manhwa, demanding to know why he had been betrayed. Jean smirked, finally speaking aloud the truth he had held in for so long. "You should accept your fate," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "I have waited for this moment for a long time." He then revealed that he had known all along about his partner's intention to eliminate him and claim the spirit beast for himself. "You thought you could deceive me, but I've always been one step ahead," Jean finished, his eyes gleaming with victory as the demon bear closed in on his former ally. Senior brother Ding, realizing his imminent demise, made a desperate plea, offering Jean Wenhua the spirit beast in exchange for his life. But Jean Wenhua, eyes cold and unwavering, declared that it was only Senior Ding's death he desired. As the demon bear lunged forward, Ding activated a powerful talisman and began chanting in a frantic voice. A massive explosion followed, engulfing the bear in roaring flames. Yet, even as the fire consumed its fur, the bear stood tall, its fury only intensifying. Senior brother Ding, however, was less fortunate. The blast from his own spell consumed him, leaving nothing but ashes in the wind. Jean Wenhua, seeing the demon bear emerge from the flames, even more enraged, quickly assessed the situation. The beast, though wounded, was now a far greater threat. Recognizing the heightened danger, Jean Wenhua made the prudent decision to retreat, unwilling to risk his life further. Meanwhile, Suhei had been watching everything from his hidden vantage point. The death of the snake catcher, coupled with the demon bear's grievous injuries, made him realize this was his pivotal opportunity. His heart raced as he weighed his options. With Senior Ding gone and Jean Wenhua fleeing, the demon bear was weakened, but still a formidable foe. Yet Suhei knew that if he could defeat the bear, it might propel him to the third level of spiritual cultivation in one swift leap. Without hesitation, Suhei swallowed the golden cultivation pill he had snatched earlier. A surge of immense energy coursed through him, his body pulsing with newfound strength. He transformed into his battle form, his golden scales gleaming with power, and his muscles rippling with anticipation. Thank you for watching. To confirm you viewed the entire video, leave a comment with the word dragon. We can't wait to see you in the next chapter. Take care.